Hey everyone, Eggman here with another video, and today we have a top 32 breakdown for Top Cuts Peoria Regionals that happened this past weekend. It was over 1,000 players, and it has this top 32 breakdown that we see here today. A couple things before we get started. First, shouts to Top Cut for running the event, but also for letting me do the stream for it. I'm still in Peoria as of recording this right now, but I was supposed to be there Saturday and Sunday. My flight got canceled on Saturday, so I wasn't able to do the recording or the stream on Saturday, but they were able to record the entirety of Saturday and it should be up. Then we did also do the live stream for Sunday as well, so I really do appreciate them being understanding about that too. I also want to shout out Jonas for doing the commentary with me. It was a really fun experience. I'm really happy it worked out. And also shouts to Russell. Russell was originally supposed to do the commentary with me, but he ended up playing Saturday because there was no commentary for it, and he ended up getting a top 64 finish, which I think is really impressive. So shout-outs to Russell for that as well, and this really great weekend in general. So if you guys want any of the deck lists for top 32, they are here on my website, Eggman Events, and then also, again, you can check out the links in the description for the live stream. So, and then, again, real quick, this was 1,082 players, which I think is the largest in-person event that we've had this season. 10 rounds of Swiss best of 1 into a top 64 cut best of 3, and then also we did just kind of cut to top 32 in this one just because honestly there's a lot of deck lists. Top 32 got invites, and I just wanted to, I don't know, top 64, there's a lot of deck lists for 64. I didn't have enough time for those, unfortunately, but I did know the leader breakdown for the top 64, which we did have 21 Sakazuki, 15 Moria, 12 Law, 4 Uta, 3 Enel, 3 Newgates with one of them winning the event, 2 of the Star Deck 13 Luffys, 2 Yamatos, 2 Katakuris, or sorry, 1 Katakuri, and 1 copy of Nami. So still the same, where it's 75% for Sakazuki, Moria, and Law is not too outrageous, and then a good amount of variety, honestly, for that last quarter, which is really interesting. So we're going to go over the top placing list for each one of these leaders, starting off with our first place, which is Long with their version of Newgate. I did do a quick interview with Long as well after their win, and it was really interesting to talk to them. Long started playing in January, which means that he pretty much missed the entirety of the reign of Newgate, which is really fun to see. That we've gotten so far away from like set 4. We're at the end of set 2. Set 3 comes out next month. There's a lot of new players just getting into in the last little bit, and just don't know that Newgate used to be the best deck in the format. I wasn't around for it, which is interesting. So, but yeah, just a pretty standard build. I think for things considered, there are a couple techs, including like 2 Nika Robins, not too bad. We also do have the Jimbei, which is pretty good for getting rid of like Bon Clays and Rebecca's. You do have to have the setup for it, but it is a 2K and a Straw Hat, so not too bad for it. We also have the Josu's, we have our Marcos, our Luffy, 1 copy of the Sanji. We have the Little Oars Jr., which is the newest card for the deck. It is a Whitebeard Allies, which means that our, the 1-drop Izo is able to find it. And it does have this: once returned, if this character would be KO'd by an effect, instead you can trash an event or stage from your hand. So it has like this inherent protection effect, which is nice. It's only being KO'd, it's not removed from field, so you can still Hound Blaze it, but a 6/7 with protection like that's pretty nice. Then we do have 3 Ace, 3 copies of Newgate, and then our lineup of events. So honestly, nothing too wild, but I think Newgate does have some good matchups into this meta, and it's really honestly great to see these matches that we were able to see from Long. So if you want to check them out, make sure to check out the description for the links for the videos, and congratulations to Long again for their finish there. Next up, we have second place. So this is Dayne's version of Trafalgar Law. Obviously, Law has been on the rise lately, and in like a best of 3 format too, and I think that's something I didn't really talk about, that we almost never get any best of 3 events or top good events for North America in general. So to be able to have an event like this kind of shows like there's a difference, right? There's a lot of people who were able to do very well in Swiss, but with the consistency added with a best of 3 instead of a best of 1, decks get better or worse inherently, right? Some decks kind of depend on like just doing a little bit better in a best of 1. Some of them are just more consistently over 3 games. So I think that's very interesting to kind of go over. But we do have the Trafalgar Law here, and you do have some techs in this one. I think it's like Missile Sunday has been a more standard ad for the deck right now. Being able to be a draw effect is really great. Being able to be a ramp effect. It's kind of like a worse copy of Useless Kids sometimes, where you are able to, or just kind of like an alternative copy, maybe is the better way to say it. But being able to use this to get our card draw on ramp, being able to play it off our life sometimes comes up. And like we can do it, like if we go first, we're able to go to 5 Dawn, play this card, and then we're able to do a Dawn -3 kind of effect, which we're able to play like a Sachi Penguin. So then we're able to go back up to 5. So we don't even like lose Dawn for the turn. We're able to establish 2 bodies and draw a card. So I think something like that is very good. We also do have like the attack of the Fire Fist. So this is, I see this every once in a while. Being able to give something -4K is great. Also, the effect off life is not too bad either. So just being able to be like a -4 on a character for the turn is good. So that again sometimes comes up. Being able to get some better removal, being able to use this to get rid of a 7K body is nice, because I think some people play 7Ks and think they're safe, meaning that you need like a Gordon Otama or something, but Fire Fist is able to get the removal for it. And then the Trafalgar Law, which this one doesn't come up. I don't feel like this is as staple of a card right now in the deck. It's still good, don't get me wrong, but I think 4 copies is unusual for this. But when your finals opponent is a Newgate, it's a very coveted card, so I think that definitely worked out for them there. So this is Dayne's list, and congratulations to their 2nd place finish. Next up we have Gecko Moria. So this is Walter's version of the deck, and I do also want to say, like I kind of mentioned at this where Newgate, you know, it's been so far since we've seen Newgate. This is Walter's first regional, and he, as far as I know, he had to play Newgate for the first time in top 4. So, which I think is, again, if you told people who were playing last year, like, oh, someone played Newgate for the first time in their top 4 finals, they would. It's a bizarre concept, right? You're like, oh, it was the best deck for so long, and again, we've just been so far removed from what the Newgate meta used to look like, and since it's more of a, like, I'd say a tier 1.5, like a little bit like off meta. Not that the deck isn't good and it can't win, because obviously it did, but more of it's not as common. Like if I was to test against 3 decks right now, if I want, like, what are the best 3 decks to play against right now? It's Moria, Law, and Sakazuki. Those are like 75% of my matchups. Newgates, if I have time, if my opponent has the deck, or if my friend group believes in the deck, I guess, or my test group. So that's just something really interesting for it. So, but anyways, for Walter's build, they're playing the. Honestly, I really like this build and what it is. I'm a big fan of like the Rebecca Hina in the Moria right now, like 2 copies each. This is more of a decision point too, but like I still think like Hina into Absalom, if we end up going second, is really nice. Rebecca being able to get the value back is really nice as well. I do like the one, swag copy of Cerberus, because there's a lot of situations where we just need another blocker, so we can play it off our leader effect, and then we're able to play like a Sabo to get the protection and double blocker for pretty cheap, and it's flexible with it, which is really nice. And then just pretty much the same package that we see from Moria. So this is Walter's build, and congratulations to their top 4 finish there. Next up we have Enel. So this is David's version of the build, and David was going quite the distance with this deck, which is really fun to see. So obviously Enel is doing pretty okay, I think, in EBO 1. It's better than it was in OPO, just OPO 6 without EBO 1, and then OPO 7 I think is going to start being pretty obnoxious again, like it was in OPO 5. So we do have like more of the, I'd say, control package, right? We're not playing any Kiko Nojos, which I think was, I literally had someone ask me the day before, like, do I believe in Kiko Nojo? And now I'm like, man, it's the worst card that I feel like I have to run sometimes. So I appreciate David. It wasn't David, but I appreciate David getting a top 4 finished without it, so I can feel justified to not play it myself. We do have like the new cards of like the Flampe, being able to get down to 1 life. So if your opponent leaves you at 2, being able to get like card advantage for this, and then sometimes play a Yamato feels great. We have like our Nami. We have Charlotte Cracker, which I think is just like an alternative version of Kiko Nojo, but this is great for kind of setting up a lethal turn, or if we're behind on life, it's very easy for this to be, apply the pressure that we really needed to. We have our Shirahoshi, Satori, 2 copies of the Ace, which is still great in this deck, because again, we get down to 2 very easily. A 5/7 rush is great, especially because we can pair it up with a 200 million volts, our reject, and get that extra value there. And then our Enel, Katakuri, and Yamato. So I think the build's pretty good. This is probably more closer to a build that I would run for this deck in this format, and just big congrats to David for their top 4 finish. Next up, we have Malique with their version of Sakazuki. This is more of like a hybrid build of like the removal, where we do have just a myriad of what are extras in stage. So we have 3 Great Eruptions, 2 Ice Age, 2 of the Amas, 4 Houndblades, and 1 copy of the stage. So I've been seeing this pop up a little bit more, and just instead of like the consistency of having only the Ama Houndblades, I don't know, I think it's fine. I think there's enough decks in this format compared to just OPO6 vanilla, where we are able to get away with more of this hybrid stage build. So I think that's strong for what the deck looks like. We do have pretty much the standard package from there. We honestly only have Sakazuki for a couple more weeks, so I don't really have that much more insight for the deck, but I think it's still very strong. It is peculiar to see that it capped out at a top 8 finish. There weren't any in the top 4, especially since it was the most represented list into the top 64 for this event, but I digress for there. So don't really have much more to say, but congratulations to Malique for their finish with Sakazuki. Next up, we have Nami. So this is Desirae's version of the deck, and Nami's just been consistently topping, and I said this in the live stream too, where Nami and Newgate are kind of similar in my mind, where they're kind of like, matchup check decks, where if they do top occasionally, usually about 1 top event kind of on average, but the issue with the deck is that it's never the deck that you primarily test against when you're playing, right? You want to play one of the big 3 for sure, and if you aren't aware of how this deck works, and if you haven't played it before, there's a lot of advantage that you're able to take just because your opponent is playing inefficiently against you, right? If your opponent, if you don't know what your numbers are needing to be to get out of, if you don't recognize that you are attacking 11k and then you have a Death Wink to get out of it for free, which is really nice, and all that other stuff. I think, again, Nami is a deck that can be very good and will always pop up whenever a meta is a little bit too slow and control-y as well. So I don't really have much more to say. This is more of the standard build for the deck. The difference for it is we do have 2 copies of Gum Gum Rain, which I don't see as often, but it is an Impel Down card. It is also a card where you are able to use cards in your hand and get some out of some weird numbers, especially since we're only playing 10 1Ks and 4 2Ks in this deck. So for it to be like an additional 2K counter, I think is fine. And then also the Trigger in Life sometimes comes up where if you play like a Kaya in your on your board, you can add it back to your hand, which means you can recycle and play it again next turn, or do something like that. Sometimes it comes up returning your opponent's cards too, so I think that's important. But this is the build. Not much more to say, but congratulations to Desirae for their finish there. Next up, we have our Yamatos. We have 2 in the top 32. We have both David and Ryan's version of the builds here. For David's build, they're both pretty much more of the aggressive yellow deck. Neither version were playing the Useless Kid, so just more taking advantage of being aggressive, making sure that we can use our Yamato effect. It's really interesting too that we do have Ryan's build here, additionally not playing the Kiko Nojo, which I think is the best card, one of the better cards for this deck at times, but again, it can be really clunky in our hand, so we are playing more of the Sure Ohm package, which I've seen a lot of success with. And then over here for David's version of the build, we are playing a couple copies of the Kiko Nojo, but we're playing just more of the Neko Mamushi as well as the Inuarashi, which is the same thing. They all get to play from your life for free as 3, which is great. We also play the Momo, which is more on the minor defensive side. Being able to put this back and return it is cool. We are playing one of the zero cost events, the Arrow. We also have just a bunch of tech cards with the Punk Gibson, Straw Sword, and 200 million volts. So definitely the build from David a little bit more on the unique side, the more personal side, which is cool to see. I do think Yamato is one of the more flexible decks when it comes to deck building. So it's not surprising to me that there's 2 different builds, even though they have kind of the same idea around them. Their card pools are almost 50-50, completely different. So this is a build from both David and Ryan, and congratulations to their top 32 finishes there. And then next up we have Den with their version of Luffy. This is one of my favorite decks in this format still. I think it's very good at what it does, and it's the deck that I'm still doing a lot of testing with. It's the one deck that I brought. I always bring a deck to an event, even if I'm running it, and I did bring a Star Deck 13 Luffy with me this time. So I think it's great for what the deck does. There's not a lot of diversity for builds. I think the only decision point is the Sports Lane. It's one of the decision points where it's a little bit slow sometimes, but it is a good target to get off your Gecko Moria sometimes. It's also just like a good like turn 2 play if you have nothing better to do as well. So I think it's fine for what the deck likes to do. We also have the 2 copies of 200 million volts, which I don't see as often, but it is a great card because we get down to 0 life pretty easy, or 0 or 1 life, so being able to use this to go for game helps us a lot. It's good for cards like Shariah and opposing Borsalinos, as well as like Rebecca's. And then we do have like our packers. So the only thing that like we're missing is like we don't have the 1 cost events that I usually see pretty often, at least like at 2 to 4 copies. So not having any of that does affect our consistency a little bit. But if we're able to still find our pieces, then we don't need the card as well. So that's kind of like the thing. Like, do you want to be more consistent or have a little bit more extension for higher plays, which is why we're playing cards like the 200 million volts again. So I don't have much more to say, but congratulations to Den for their finish there. And then next up we have Uta. So this is Gabriel's version for the build. We did have, I think, 4 Utas into the top 64, which is pretty much like a higher than average number, I think, for the deck. And then only 1 was able to, squeak out a win into to top 32. But I think this deck is great for right now. It's the deck that I recommend for new players as much as possible. I think it's pretty easy to build. It's pretty straightforward, especially because you can just get 2 of the star decks and get the additional copies from there. Only expensive cards are like the Nami and then also the Useless Kid, which this can be subbed out for like a 10 cost Doflamingo or just a bunch of other cards as well. You don't need to use this card. It is probably still the best in slot generically, but there are some other builds for it. And I don't really have much more to say. I think this deck is more on just a gameplay style. It's not as much of a deck construction, but it still does some good stuff. I think Sakazuki still does a very good job against this deck, so it's a bit of a harder matchup in general, but I think it's still a great deck in what this format looks like. So this is Gabriel's build, and congratulations for their top there. And then lastly, we have Katakuri. So this is Benny's version of the build. Only one again in top 64, which is very bizarre for me because this time a month ago, Katakuri was consistently topping and was winning some events in this format, which is interesting. But I think that people have kind of figured out how to play a little bit. I think Enel is a little bit better of the yellow deck as it is, and it's just not seeing as much play, which is interesting. I think also Red Purple Law does a really good job at beating up this deck. It's just very aggressive, and the deck doesn't really have a great way for the removal for the cards that they're playing, and because of that, it's a little bit trickier to play Katakuri in the compared to the previous format. So I don't have much more to say. I don't have a lot to say about this build. We've seen Katakuris for quite a bit. We do have like the standard top end of our Linlins, our Katakuri, as well as our 10 drop, and then we just have like our medium plays to take advantage of it. So like the Kiko Nojos are still, I think like they're better in this deck than Yamato at times, just because we do find the time just to play these for 4. If you play them off our life, they're better. We have 5 life as well, so we see them a little bit more often. And since we're playing that kind of like aggressive tempo game with this deck, it's a great card for that. So it's kind of like another copy of Perez Barrow in kind of that regard. Then we have just a good amount of cards that play off our life. We have our Gadatsu, a single copy of the Ace, and then our Vance of 2 of the 0 cost, 1 El Thor, 2 200 million volts, and then 2 copies of Reject. So not much more to say, but congratulations to Benny for topping with Katakuri. So anyways, that's going to be it for this video. I hope you guys enjoyed it. Thank you again to Topgood for letting myself come out there and being again flexible with my flight getting canceled on Saturday. Shouts to Jonas for also for helping me commentate for this event. It was a really great experience, and I'm really happy it worked out for that. Shouts to Russell for getting a top 64 finish as well. And then shouts again to everyone who said hi, and you guys are very, very kind. I really do appreciate all the kind words everyone says, and it's really, really nice to see people in person too. So that's going to be it for me. Thank you guys so much for watching. I really do appreciate it. I'll catch you all next time.
Damn it. Damn it.